The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this marvellous edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. Tonight, I can tell already. Feel it in the air. I just want to introduce my co-host for tonight, Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How you doing?
I'm absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
Have you had any of these thunderstorms that have been?
No, not really. We've had a lot of rain, but that's about it.
Oh,
We
okay.
haven't had any bangs or crashes. We had one last week, but that's not a new one.
There's one this morning over my area. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. Woke me up.
Didn't hear a thing.
Yeah,
oh, it may well have gone on then over here, because I'm not that far from you, but I didn't hear a thing.
No, that's it. I can imagine. Sprawl on the sofa or the bed or whatever and snore when you head off.
Snoring my little head off at that time of the morning.
Thunderstorms.
Oh, I love a thunderstorm.
You had any paranormal stuff going on this week?
I'm tackling a blog. I'm still tackling a blog at the moment. And funnily enough, I've just got off the phone to Penny. And I was saying about how it's because it's history. I'm having trouble with it. It give me a concept or an idea and it flows, but give me something to do with actual history. It's a little tricky of the wording to get it in how I would say it, how I would portray it. Is a little tricky, but yeah, I've just literally got off the phone to her on that one. Funny, but yeah, it's all good, all good.
Cool. Well, we've got a few people in the chat room already. Richard Clements is there, and Gray Rudd. I've not seen Gray for a while.
No, it's good to see Gray out and about again. Really. Hi.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Right. So tonight's special guest is Mr. CJ Simmons. Hello, CJ. How you doing?
Well, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
No problem. It's a pleasure as always. Yeah. So you've been up to much?
No, just been out investigating. That's all. Various little places. Been here, been there, doing this, doing that.
Yeah. I think the last time I see you was on Bargain Hunt, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, don't even go there. Don't even. That popped up on my timeline today, actually, as a memory. I was just looking, but it was a good time. It was good. It was fun.
It was a good episode. Yeah.
At least I got the cars sold on it. That went.
That's it. Mind you, there's not many episodes to sell anything on.
Well, I've got to be quite honest. I was quite taken back by it, actually, how they do it and how they film it, and it was just a mad day. That was a really mad day. But I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Oh dear. That would have been a good day.
And your sidekick is in the chat room. Karin's in there.
Oh, she's in there, is she? Oh, yeah, just like a bolt to a gate, she's there. Don't worry about that. Shadow.
Awesome. Well, tonight's subject, we're going to be discussing new locations that are popping up here, there, and everywhere. So, what are your thoughts on them?
Well, to be quite honest with you, these new locations. I mean, you've got to decide what we're talking about with new locations. I mean, there's some locations now which have opened up their doors to us, to the paranormal world, and there's some crazy locations that have just popped up out of the blue with no history or no little bit of a backing behind it as such. And it all depends on which part we want to look at, really, and what we want to talk about.
I don't think it's so much as new locations opening their doors to people, because at the end of the day, some big houses do that, don't they? They almost like have seasons. Yep. Sometimes they'll allow in and sometimes they won't. That's not really what I've got an issue with this. My issue with this is if you want to investigate a haunted house, I've got one, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to charge you £200 a night to investigate my haunted house. Yeah. Why is my house haunted? Well, because I say so.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can come in and you can work with your tech. And it feels to me it's targeted to people that aren't maybe as far along their paranormal field. It feels like it's targeted towards people who don't know better at this stage, which would be small teams, because you only got like a little house at the end of the day. So you're not looking at big event teams. You're looking at small teams to come in. For me, this looks like it's and I'm going to throw it out there, a bit of a rip-off.
Well, it to be quite honest, I suppose really it is. I mean, you've got to look at the paranormal world in itself, isn't it? There's money to be made in it, and there are people out there that will make money out of anything, to be quite honest with you. And I just think, as I said, I'm not being funny, there's a house empty 2 doors down from me. I could easily go down there, rent that out and say, hey, there was a death in here, or somebody died in here, or somebody reported this or reported that in there. And you would get people that would pay to go in and investigate it. At the end of the day, money does come into it.
Devil's advocate point. Some of the theories would suggest that hauntings can happen at any time, any place. So why wouldn't it be haunted?
Exactly.
So you could go in there.
Yeah, there could be hauntings there. I'm not saying
We don't know. But I don't know. This is such a tricky one for me. I don't like the idea because from a business perspective, it looks like it's taking advantage. I don't have an issue with people making money out of the paranormal at all. I don't. But I think you're advertising something you can't do. You can't go. You could say it's possibly haunted. Yeah. Whereas like other locations you would look at and they've got a report of a ghost story or a ghost something paranormal has happened there before. This hasn't or doesn't seem to, or the information isn't being brought forward. And that's my problem with this. I mean, I suppose it would be more honest to go, a possibly haunted house.
Well,
do you know what I mean? But it's sensationalism titling of the location that I'm not liking.
Yeah.
To sell the location. Newstead Abbey does not say the most haunted place in Britain. Newstead Abbey. It's just Newstead Abbey. Do you know what I mean? And that's just one of... It's not the Poltergeist house, the Black Monk house. Do you know what I mean? It's not a sensationalised title, and that, I think, is my issue with this.
Yeah. There's been quite a lot of those. I mean, even like going back to, I think, wasn't it the Hostel, De Grey Street? That was like... I think that was pretty much when it started, though, wasn't it? All the centralisation.
I mean, I could call my house that I've got, that I'm going to rent out for £200 a night, the Asylum House. Because trust me, at times it's like living in one. Do you know what I mean? It's a sensationalised title just to sell the location. My house is not haunted. I would just like to point out. Do you know what I mean? Not like it's being sold as.
How do you know it's not haunted?
It works for me when I'm here because I'm the one create. But then the work I do is linked to the work I do. But generally, I haven't got a residing ghost that I see on a regular basis. But there is stuff that happens around my house because of how I work. Take me out of the equation and all my stuff out of the equation. Would it work? Probably not.
Well, to be quite honest with you, I think a lot of these locations as well, you could take, is it 30 East Drive? Is that the
that's the
there?
Monk, yeah.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I mean, when all the TV came out of it, all of a sudden everybody was piling into that location because of what that location was.
Because of the media drive, exactly. But these are brand spanking new locations that haven't got that sensationalism backstory or even an original case attached to it. If you're going to... Or a ghost story or a folk tale, or there's nothing.
Well, this is where I refer to really... The way that we do it, if we come across a new location, and we have got one or two, it takes, we've been looking into one location for over a year before we even, put it out there as such. So you study the place, you find out what's there, what's not there. Nowadays, it's rent a house or rent an old cinema or something like that, and it's haunted. And straight away, not being funny, you will get the event companies piling in there straight away. Not how many people can we get into that location? It's been up all over the place, to be quite honest, but there's no way you're going to stop it. I think it's just really people need to think long and hard. I mean, I don't go off. I've never been to this poltergeist house. I've never been to this 30 East Drive when that came about, or any of them, only purely because I know people who have already been there, already investigated, and I take back on board what they come back and they tell me. But I'm not saying that they're not haunted. It's just that I just think to myself, it's a crazy world at the moment. Well, the paranormal is crazy anyway.
The Grey Rod in the chat room, he said that should they have a history, but should haunted houses have history to them?
Well, when I refer to history, I mean you look into the time span of the property. Has there been any, you could say if there's been any deaths there, has there been any sort of murders in it? That's what I refer to, looking into that background. So if somebody comes up to me and says to me, well, I've got a property, it's new, come in and investigate it. We think somebody died in a room or we think something took place in there. I'd want to look back to put that evidence all together in that place. If nothing comes up, then at the end of the day, for me, it's a waste of time investigating it.
Yeah. So do you actually go back into the history and then try and confirm?
We try to confirm, basically, if it's reported there's a haunting there, then we go back into the history to see if that correlates with that, or whether it's folklore, because a lot of it is folklore, really, is what said to somebody.
Says somebody else, yeah.
But there's always some sort of element of truth, though, isn't there?
Exactly.
In that
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Always a point of truth. Now, I won't mention this one location for obvious reasons, but we've got one particular spirit there, and it's called one particular name, and we've done some research, and we found out that there was a spirit there, but it wasn't called that name. Over the years, people have added that on, their little bits of story to it. And at the end of the day, it becomes entrenched in that location.
But actually, on a new location, that would be an interesting psychological case study file to build up, because you've got no history there, you've got no story there. So wouldn't it be interesting actually to see what happens, what people, personal experiences they have, and then see what names come out, if they do, of if anything happens in that house. And see how that grows and grows and grows over time after many teams have gone in there, investigated, and various information gets put out on the web and stuff like that. Wouldn't it be a fascinating psychological case study file with a brand spanking new location with no history?
Well, you could literally just get a location and say something happened in there, get a lot of people to come in there and have a look, and over time that will take on that entity, if that makes sense. That will actually take on an entity in itself.
Exactly.
And case studies and doing it is the best way to do it, to be quite honest. From my perspective, I don't go into a new location without having some information, without going back there, either investigating it more than like a couple of times, get an idea, get a feel for the place. As I said, I've got two now, me and Corinne, and basically, the one of them, it's taken us a year to actually look into it before we've actually gone in there and investigated it. And, that's the way that I look at things when I get to these new locations. I wouldn't just go blindly into a location and say, hey, that's haunted or whatever. But unfortunately, there are people out there that will do that.
Paul?
So I know one of the newest locations that have just come out is the Poltergeist House. And we approached Lee Steer about the history of the building, because he claimed it was a poltergeist house, but when he put the pictures up, the place was empty, it was vacant. And my argument was like, well, how do you know that there's a poltergeist there?
My words,
because if the place is empty, You've got no one as eyewitnesses. No, not even like furniture being shoved about and put into one corner or whatever. There was just nothing there. And he turned around and said that there was documentation in the form of a couple of newspaper reports, which no one that I know has actually found yet.
Right. But that would be in that local news, I suppose, in the area. As I said, I've never been there, so I don't know much about it, whether it's haunted or whether it's not. But that's what I go about when I said you research the location. Yeah. If you've got that, you need to go look in local. You need to find out, is there, as we've said before, is there any substance to the actual haunting? Is there
my issue is actually with the title of this one. We can't find any verifiable information on this particular poltergeist. And also the nature of a poltergeist haunting you have to look at. It's not going to be there now.
No, that's my argument with this 30 East Drive.
Exactly.
What took place that time. Now, there's been, not to my knowledge, any sort of reports of what had happened back in the years, when it became famous, put it that way. Mm-hmm. The accounts that took place there. So how can it be still haunted? You would expect, obviously, that what happened the first time would continue. Mm-hmm. Well, then that's a haunting. That's a poltergeist haunted, isn't it? But there's just no evidence to substantiate that. So in areas like that and locations like that don't really interest me very much, to be quite honest.
It is a tricky one. Now, right, Gray in the chat room is going on about, come on, it's all about money, money, money. I have no problem with people making money out of the paranormal and throwing an event experience for people. Got no problem with that. At all. And actually, from a business perspective, we said this before the show, if you want to build a business that makes money, there are certain factors he's hitting on here that are good business decisions to make money doing what he's doing. So I haven't got a problem. I have a problem with how it's not got any basis in anything. The fact that he's saying a place is haunted but isn't giving the case of the poltergeist case. Poltergeist cases are very specific kinds of hauntings. They don't last forever. They're usually linked to a family. Yeah. And it blows out in a short point of time. Enfield is not haunted now. That's had people living in there for years with no problems. If you wanted to make a good business move, buy it, move the family out, paranormal investigate it every single night of the week, the same as 30 East Drive. It's a good business decision. However, this is somebody who's saying, is like Bill Bungie just put it out for hire. Is what he's doing any different from that? I'm playing devil's advocate on this, but is what he's doing any different from that?
Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat room. I saw just trying to
No, it's not people doing fraud. It's no different from selling a product. If somebody wants a product, you're supplying it.
They're selling the experience.
Yeah, they're selling the experience.
They're selling the experience, but they're not backing it up with any evidence. Like, for example, as we said, like Lee Steer and the Poltergeist House. All he's come back with is it's been documented in local newspapers. Well, we've looked for local newspapers and we found a poltergeist case. We've actually asked for like details of the paper and everything to try and get the information, but it's almost like he doesn't want to forward that on, which raises alarm bells in my mind. And it's like, well
I think it does raise alarm bells if somebody's not forthcoming with information which is simple enough and should be easy enough to find yourself online.
Exactly. It's not. This is for me the problem here. Mm-hmm. I have to say, this for me is the problem. When we go into a location, if we get names or something come through or whatever piece of tech it is, or by a medium, and you go back, you check the history, you don't already know that. What makes it interesting is the information that's coming through on that investigation, where that information comes from, right? Yeah. So I'm not saying it's paranormal, but it throws up interesting questions if you can verify it with the history. With this one, there's nothing verifiable.
Yeah,
or
well,
there would be nothing verifiable because the actual details of the case of where this is not forthcoming. And he said he had the history of this place, which he said he would give.
Well, if he said he's got it and he should hand it over, right? Well, not hand it over, but he should make it clear. I mean, if it was me doing it and there was that, it would be up there. It'd be up for people to see.
Well, this is why I feel it's aimed at people that don't know that much, aren't that savvy in the paranormal field. Do you know what I mean? That's why, for me, it feels wrong. Because anybody who's been in the field longer does that kind of work, and that's why we're so into it, because of the questions it throws up when you start going in and doing these kind of things. And that's my problem with this.
Yeah, he's basically false selling it, which
he's marketing it, and that's what it is. It's marketed, isn't it? Really, he's got a location, he's put it up. You put up the word poltergeist, and people are going to flock there. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
People, mainly groups that have been doing it for a long, long time, and single investigators, they would see it what it is. But when you've got members of the public, you put up poltergeist house, public want a little thrill. They want to go in and they want to be scared and they want to see these things. But, it's good marketing at the end of the day. As I said, I've never been there and I don't know Lee. I've heard a lot about him. I've never been to the location. But I doubt very much if I ever would go there, only purely for the fact because it's called the Poltergeist House, and if there's nothing to back that up, then it doesn't interest me as an investigator.
No, I can understand, but again, like Kerry playing devil's advocate, what about if he was using the house as a social experiment type of thing? He's just bought this house, empty house, and thought, I know, if we tell people it's haunted, let's see.
That could be possibly. I wouldn't know. All I see is what I see on social media as such, or what I've had other people who have been there or have come back to me and have feedback. It could be a social experiment. You just don't know. But what a good social experiment. We go back to it again. You could get a house. You could actually say and make a fictitious ghost there, get people coming in. But over time, that entity take on its own entity.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So then it will become a poltergeist house.
Which then throws up questions, doesn't it? That we are the ones then creating the activity, and it's not actually a ghost. Yeah. That we're the ones creating that. So actually, what you're doing is you're paying for a location where you could which the field is creating an active. It could end up being the most active house completely.
Well, to be quite honest with you, you'd say that of all locations, wherever you go and you investigate, quite honest, I've always said this, it's pure luck. You're not going to go to a location and have activity after activity after activity. If that was the case, something's wrong, to be quite honest with you. I've done investigations as well as Corinne and a few other of my colleagues, and we've paid substantial amounts of money to go there, and we've had absolutely nothing. But we've gone there and investigated it. Hauntings just don't happen like that as at a click of the finger, We have it where I currently do investigations at this one place. Some days it's quiet, some months it's quiet, some months it's active. You just can't switch it on and you just can't switch it off. It's pure luck. And so, people may disagree with me, but it's the truth. It's pure luck. It's being in the place at the right time. That's what ghost hunting is about.
Absolutely. And I think with the Poltergeist House in particular, he's now turned it into a haunted museum. Now, if the place was that haunted in the first place, he doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another thing that doesn't make too much sense. But at the end of the day, he's providing a service. It's almost like he's used the word poltergeist to pique people's interest, and when they look at it, come to my museum.
Yeah.
I mean, like in the chat room, people like someone's accused him of being a fraud. I don't believe that one little bit.
Yeah, you don't use words like that, to be quite honest.
No, I think that's a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But he's still providing a service.
Yeah.
He's marketed it. Okay, he's not marketed it possibly in the best way, but it's
No,
still
it's the
piquing
best.
people's
No, but
interest.
it's the best way for the environment that he's selling it in.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. It piques people's interest to let them, turn their gaze onto his property, his museum. Then they see it's a haunted museum, and they're like, well, actually, yeah, that does sound actually quite good.
Well, actually, there's somebody in the chat room has just put up now that they've seen a few teams go there and they didn't get any evidence at all, or they didn't get very much at all from there. But that's exactly what you can get from every location when you think about it.
I'm wondering if they went there before or after the museum came in.
Sorry?
I wondered if they went before or after the museum went in there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It was a Rachel or somebody. They said that they didn't know.
Yeah, Rachel's there. Hi, Rachel.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people in the chat room tonight, so thank you all so much for joining us. Just saying hi, really.
Could I just say hello to Trisha and Alison, because I've noticed they've just joined in. And there's a few other... Good God, there's quite a few in there, to be quite honest. I'm quite surprised.
That's all good.
Yeah.
More opinions, the better, absolutely. But Rachel said that they went in before the museum, so that's probably why they didn't get much. But I'm wondering whether or not the museum would actually make too much of a difference.
But when we talk about it's turning into a museum, I mean, I presume he's brought in haunted objects, I presume.
Well, yeah, because to be fair, when we did speak to him before, when he bought the Haunted Bride doll, when we had that conversation, he already had quite a few different bits and bobs that he'd picked up along the way. Anyway, he said he lives with these. Do you know what I mean? Right. So to be fair, he's got a location. He's got somewhere to put them. I mean...
Exactly. I wouldn't want him...
No, it's just... Exactly. So is it... Before, there was not a lot. If now there's activity, then again, that throws up a lot of questions, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. I mean,
you're still selling an experience, and that's all it is. Absolutely.
With a sensationalised name.
But to us investigators, I would say, even at any haunted museum, is what is the methodology behind the haunted items in the first place? Why are they haunted? Or why they...
we're always going back to a story, though. Mm. We're always going back to that point of story, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Folklore.
So if the information is out there in some form or other that you can research about an object or something, it throws up questions because the information is out there somewhere. Yeah. Could it brings up other... and I know I'm going into theories and stuff like that, but where's that information coming from? If it's out there anyway, that information's out there, whether or not you've looked it up or not, it asks, where does that come from? Do you know what I mean? I just find the whole thing so fascinating on several levels, but I don't like the fact of it feels targeted to unexperienced teams.
See, now
I'm not saying Rachel's unexperienced because I know she went in there, but you know what I mean? But I'm not saying that at all. But it feels like that's where it's geared to. And it doesn't sit comfortable with me.
I think with museums in particular, it works on different levels. I mean, again, it depends on how they're working. I mean, I know we keep mentioning Lee, but with Lee's one, I mean, maybe I don't know. Are we allowed to interact with the objects? Are we allowed to pick them up, look at them?
I don't know. No, I don't. I honestly don't know.
I know you can do that. I know you can do that at the Haunted Antiques Centre at Neil Packer's one, and we can go in there as investigators and examine the piece. We can experiment with it. We can then look into the history. So it's almost like a good opportunity for us to go to one location and have access to all these different artifacts. I mean, there's another museum. Isn't there one in Kent?
I
think
there's a couple around. There are a couple around. Yeah. Joe and Gemma had a team, didn't they? A company that have a haunted museum as well. I can't remember their names now. But it's a point of discussion because this is a thing that comes up in the paranormal field time and time again. And I still think you have to differentiate where you're at. You know, what you want from your night. If you want a paranormal experience, then go with an events company. That's fine. Do you know what I mean? But if you want an investigation, then you are more discerning and do the work, as it were, even if it's a well-known location. I just think with this particular one, I think what bugs me is that there's nothing to back up the title. At least with East Drive, there was a story there before that had newspaper reports on it. Do you know what I mean? I wish that was more forthcoming. That would put my I don't know, trust, is that a word? Is that the right word? I don't know. I think that would make it more credible as a location for me.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
word, not trust. It's credibility as a location for me. But it isn't forthcoming. So that's the problem.
Well, maybe he... Well, I mean, I don't know. Have you spoken to Lee about the Poltergeist house? Have you invited him on to see what he's got to say about it?
Well, he did have the opportunity to be on Parasearch Radio at the beginning of the year, but then decided to not confirm the booking, even though he asked to come on. He won't reply to any messages now, shall we say. From me, anyway. From me, personally. I don't know about Paul.
He spoke to me briefly regarding the newspaper reports.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't tell me which papers. But he just said that he had the information, the history, and that was it. And I'm supposed to take his word for that. I don't.
That's it in a nutshell. If he said he's got the evidence there to back it up, if he's not producing it, well then I've got to say from my perspective and doing investigations, I find that suspicious to me, to be quite honest.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
It's not a way of putting it. That's how I would find it. I mean, I'm not...
I have sent Lee a link to tonight's show as well, hoping he does turn up into the chat room. That would be good.
Well, it would be good, really, at the end of the day. If he's got a location, he's saying it's a poltergeist house, he's saying there's evidence there, where is it? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not haunted. I'm not saying it's not haunted by poltergeist. But for me, personally, I would want a little bit more background information on the place. And before I even attempt to go there. And I'm not saying I won't go there. I might just go out there out of curiosity, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, you don't know if the place is haunted or if it's not haunted. I mean, everywhere, I suppose, really, when you think about it, if you talk about spirits are everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
When you think of how many people on this planet over the years have passed on, this planet must be crammed with spirits. Think about it.
Exactly.
So they must be somewhere. So I'm not saying that it's not haunted. I'm not saying that it is haunted. From my perspective, I would want to have a lot more information, and I would want to do a little bit of research myself before I would go to a location like that. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, in the interest of fairness as well, if Lee Steer does actually listen to this back, I'd definitely be interested to hear what he has got to say, and I'd even have him on air.
Paul, I'll be honest with you, if he is listening to it, I'd love to talk to the guy. Yeah. I'd like to know a little bit more about this place. Because, at the end of the day, he's put it out there that it's a poltergeist house. Well, if for people like me, if he wants people like me to come there, well, I need that little bit more information. So I'd love to talk to him. I'd love to talk to him face-to-face, on radio, or even on the phone. And I'll put that invitation out there to him. Come and talk. Because at the end of the day, we're not saying that it isn't haunted. We're not saying it is haunted. It's just there's a little bit there that just needs to be clarified.
Yeah. Yep.
So clarification needs to be put across there, Yeah. Well, that's my view, No,
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. And I'd happily have him on air to sort of defend that because it's only fair.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. And as I say, even if there is no story, even if there's nothing, it makes a fascinating case study from a sociological, psychological perspective. Do you know, that's actually, for me, that's interesting. Knowing some of the, the ideas and some of the theories, that actually makes that actually quite interesting as a location with no story, nothing. If you look back in the records and even you look at, what is it? I don't even know how old the house is. Do you know what I mean? I don't know anything about it. But this would be, if there's nothing that's paranormal, and then all of a sudden you've got allegedly haunted objects in an allegedly haunted house, and activity does start to happen, then you've got to start thinking, if there's no pre-story, why?
Yeah.
I'm going to just address this, right? I have no problem with people making money out of an experience in regards to the paranormal. No problem at all, right? So if that's what he's doing, then that's fine. What I have a problem with is some ways the way he isn't forthcoming with information for the more serious paranormal investigator. I'm not happy that there is no case before in regards to that. If you've got an empty house that's not got any ghost story attached to it, then don't put it out as a poltergeist house. And that's why we want verification from. That's why we want that, because as investigators, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's everybody, you pay your money, you take your choice. If you want to go and investigate it, go. No one's saying you can't. All we're saying is there are a lot more experienced people out there that are questioning this particular location because we like to dig a bit deeper. We like to look things more. Exactly. We are more knowledgeable than a little team that's just started up and think a K2 meter is communication with spirit, quite frankly. And that is my point on this. From a business perspective, I can see it. From a psychological experiment, I can see it. From an events experience, I can see it too.
Well,
yeah.
I think
and I think
ahead when you were framed, what about the location? I mean, is it a council house? Was it a private house? You don't know. There doesn't seem to be any information about that.
No, there isn't any info about it at all. No. But then that's something that Lee would have to clarify.
Yeah, exactly. Only Lee or whoever's involved in it can actually just put those questions to bed. Really, and the only way to do it is to actually put it out there and just say, well, look, here's what we're saying. This is what we found. You know, even if it's incorrect information, you know, because that does happen at times. But it's what we're basing this on. From an investigator's perspective, that's what I'm looking at, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I really struggled trying to find history on De Grey Street because that's got quite a complicated history. And I think even from what I can remember off the top of my head, I think the original road that it was on was bombed.
Yeah. And
they actually moved the road slightly. Mm-hmm. So the Grey Street isn't really as old as they reckon, or they said. It was rebuilt out of the old bricks from the original house.
Yeah.
Just moved over slightly. So it's got a really complicated history, and it sort of doesn't make sense to me. But they're another prime example, De Grey Street. The history is not that fantastic, but then loads of people like to go there.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But again, that has been heavily criticised by the paranormal community for that. It's a location that's not particularly haunted, it's not particularly active, it's being sold as an events company, and the place is really run down and pretty derelict. Do you know what I mean? From what I understand, because I've not been there.
Do you know?
But you pay your money, you take your choice. I mean, I don't want to go and investigate that. I don't want to go and investigate a 3-bed semi-house. I'm not being funny, that's not my bag. I prefer older locations. Do you know what I mean? That's how I like to investigate. That's my style of investigating.
You just like the grand houses just so you can pretend to be the lady of the house.
All right, yeah, I hold my little hands up to that. But no, I like things like the Hellfire, you know, things like that I'll quite happily go and do. Don't really want to spend my night in a 3-bedroomed house that I do every night pretty much anyway. It's just a different decor. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't hold it for me. I like when I go out investigating, bearing in mind, I'm going out not as a Parasearch Radio person, I'm going out as Kerry Greenaway, going and doing my thing in the field. Do you know what I mean? I work very spiritually in the field. A load of people say that's a load of bunkum. I don't really care, it's how I do it. That's what I get out of my experience for that night.
I think what Lee's done is quite very clever, because not only it depends on why you want to go. Do you want to go because it's a poltergeist house, or do you want to go because it's a museum? And when you go to the museum, it works on different levels. You can, like a traditional museum, you can have a look around at all the objects. Okay, they might not be haunted, and vice versa, you know. But it's giving you that chance to look at these objects and decide for yourself. And as an investigator's point of view, you might have to. I mean, I don't know whether or not you can examine these artifacts or not, but like in the instance of Neil Packer's research centre, you can pick up the objects, you can investigate them, you can then go away and look at the history of that particular item. Do you know what I mean? So it works on different levels, and I think it's quite a clever idea. The only thing for me that lets it down, the Poltergeist house in particular, is the fact that there's no actual evidence to say that there's a poltergeist.
Well, here's the thing that I would say. Has this place just been opened up immediately to event companies or teens, or has there been actual studies done on it? Has there been proper investigations of the property? That's
it's just teens at the moment.
It's just teens. It's not been opened up to the public or anything like that. So you could say that he's having teams going in there to build up a bit of a background on it. You just don't know.
Exactly.
But, you know, that could be a possibility, and that could be a mindset, because at the end of the day, you do have to test a property out at the end of the day in a location. The best way to do that is getting teams, local teams, to come in. But also, has it been investigated? You know, has there been a study on there for, say, 2 or 3 months? Have they constantly gone in there and investigated? That's the sort of stuff that I would do if it was me. You know, because
I totally agree. But then, if that's the case, then why has he not just said, "Look, I've got this property. I want to put my antiques museum in there. I've got a feeling it could be haunted. Can you come in and just verify?"
Bang on. Yeah.
Or find out. You know, see what you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then let a few teams in. I mean, okay, I personally wouldn't charge for that, because teams don't.
We've got Tricia Lacey Waters in the chat room. She's going to be the first investigator staying alone overnight next month at this place that we're talking about.
It'd be interesting to find out what happened on that. So definitely keep in touch with that one.
To be quite honest, I know Tricia, and she'll give a true account of it. To be quite honest, she's pretty good. And not being funny, there's other people that have mentioned what I've said as it being investigated in the chat room themselves. You know, has it been studied for a little while before it was released? You know, so at the end of the day, it's only Lee that can answer those questions, isn't it? Really.
It is true on that one. It is. No, you're right. It is true on that one. Yeah. It is only Lee that can answer it. But these are the questions that people are asking, and will scrutinise when a location comes up, like a new location that comes up. If you're going to just like bang, you know, flood the feeds with it, but not when people are approaching you about it, not coming back with anything, then it does throw up questions and a little bit of suspicion in people's heads about motives and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And that's the problem, I think, here with this one. I'm always happy to give Lee a fair airing. Do you know what I mean? I'm always fair. That's why I did it about the Haunted Bridal, because he got a lot of slack for that as well. He came on, he was quite happy to talk about everything, and went through the timeline of how things happened, and he answered a lot of questions. Whether they were to your satisfaction or not, that's up to you. But he had that opportunity to do that. Yeah. We will do the same for this particular situation as well. Quite happy to do that. If you don't like his answers, that's your problem.
You can only express your own opinion and your own view on it. And all I can do is express my own view and my own opinion. I would give him an opportunity to, I've got questions, and if he can answer my questions and satisfy my curiosity and back it up a little bit, I'd go up there and have a look at it, to be quite honest. But I need to be satisfied that, to be honest, it's not a money-making scheme, you know? To be quite... to warrant, it's a long way to go. But
I did ask, when he first announced it, I did ask him, because, I mean, although it's come up as a poltergeist house and stuff, I asked him a few questions first, and I said to him, is there any chance that we could come up before you opened it up, just to let a small couple of us in as researchers, or Parasearch Radio, just come in. We can then interview you at the location. We can put a show together. And he was like, yeah, we'll be up for that. But then nothing ever happened. Nothing materialised.
Then you have to ask yourself why.
Exactly. I mean, there's another independent researcher as well that was trying to ask about history at the same time, and he doesn't get replies back or anything like that, and it's just a really odd situation. It's like you want to put this out there, but you're not willing to tell people
background to it.
Yeah, exactly, and it just that on its own raises alarm bells. I mean, forget the museum,
Paul. That causes suspicion, doesn't it?
It does.
Suspicious.
Absolutely.
If somebody's not forthcoming with their answers, to be quite honest,
to
your questions as such, and it's
if he just come up and said, if he just come up and said, I've got this house, I've turned it into a haunted museum, come and have a look.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's just the way he approached it and launched it as a poltergeist house first, and it's like, well, got questions, but no answers. And then he's done this as well. It raises questions. It really does, and I would really love for him to join us on a show.
To be quite honest, as I said, I don't know the gentleman. I've never had communication with him. I'd like to, because I'm interested in what he's stated about the place. But that's only purely to satisfy my own curiosity. But I think we've got to remember as well that within the paranormal, it's a big, diverse field. There is so many different elements. You've got the dedicated, hardcore investigators. You've got the hobbyists. You've got the spiritual side of it. There's all different types of, and this will appeal to many different factions, but not so much, I think, the hardcore investigators, because they want facts. They want evidence. They want to do a little bit of research. But, it may not appeal to us, but it will appeal to others within the field.
And this is what I was saying about the museums. They different levels. As I said, you've got the people that are just interested in the paranormal, and they'll have a look around and wander around and stuff and look at the objects, like a Ripley's Believe It or Not sort of scenario. But then you've got the hardened investigators that would like to pick up the artifacts, examine them, see whether or not they can elicit any paranormal activity, and then look into what is causing that. Then you've got the people that have just started doing the paranormal investigations, that they could learn something as well. So it does work on so many levels, and that's why I've not got a problem with the museum. Yeah. It's just the history of the location. He's claimed it's haunted. He's claimed it's a poltergeist. Well, I want to see at least some evidence to say that there's something there.
That's a statement in itself. Let's be quite honest. You put it out there. You've got a location that's got a poltergeist. You're going to get a lot of people wanting to look into it. So at the end of the day, I think maybe if it was called a different name or something, it may not have had so much of an impact. But I think because he's called it the poltergeist house, I think that's what's given the reaction back to it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Going back to 30 East Drive, because this is the only location that I've actually noticed anything like this. They've got a comments book at 30 East Drive, and it was in the kitchen. And when we done it for another show, Bill Bungie invited us up there to do a free investigation for 24 hours. Yeah. So we went up there, done it, and I was flicking through this book at 4 o'clock in the morning when everyone else was asleep. And 90% of the comments were like, it's rubbish, there's nothing here, quiet night, and that just goes to prove that it's for me, hype, 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And which leads me down the route of that we sort of manifest these spirits from our belief systems.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know Kerry goes on about those all the time, but actually I think there is something in it.
Yeah.
It's just what I'm researching. I mean, I'm researching. It is well known. I very rarely go out and actually investigate these days. I do a lot more research and reading and writing, and I do a lot more of that sort of stuff, exploring theories and stuff like that. That's what I do now. And the more I look into it, the more it stacks up, and I'd like to see more of that kind of attitude reflected in the field and experiments geared towards that kind of thing. I think, I just think that it's just, the paranormal field is very attractive to a lot of people. Why not go out and have an experience? At the end of the day, when I go out in the field these days, I'm for personal experience, because investigating a well-investigated location without being able to lock it down and really get to grips with the situation and do the data logging and do the more serious side is not going to happen in one night. You have to do an extended case file study on something like that. That's the bit that interests me for investigating. But if I'm going out on an experience night and an event night, I'm out there for personal experience at the end of the day. I want to work how I work. I want to do what I do in the field, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if I'm going to choose a location, I'll be discerning about where I choose. And a lot of that will be, to be fair, what's already out there. The hype, if you like, about it. But I wouldn't be looking at somewhere like a semi-detached house. That's just not, that wouldn't prove anything. It doesn't attract me. It doesn't appeal to me to do that. And that's my personal opinion. That's me. That's how I work. That's what I want out of the field. But if you're a brand spanking new team and this brand spanking new location comes up there, firstly, you're excited because not many people have investigated it. Secondly, you're caught up in the hype of the story. And B, it's probably cheap enough that a small team could get in there. And that's the bit that bothers me.
You've hit the nail on the head. You've hit the nail on the head, because also having a location that suddenly have come up that's not being located, being investigated or over-investigated, most teams do want to get in there first. And they do fly, and they do get into them, and it does attract them. Because if you get a location that is not being done, the first thing you want to do is get in there and be the first team to do it.
Yeah.
And I like that, to be quite honest.
And I don't mind that, actually. I don't mind that. That's part of the excitement of going into an investigation, particularly if you know no one's done it before. Because the theories are out there that, if a location is done time and time again, night after night after night, it kind of goes a bit flat anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that theory. But a lot of what we work with are theories. So,
we know
theories.
Yeah, well, the field's unproven. There's nothing to say. There's no actual evidence to say that there is hauntings. Some people agree, some people disagree on that. But there isn't any actual evidence. Nobody can come up to me and say, hey, that's proof of the paranormal. It's why we do it, I suppose, really. It's to see the unknown. It's to investigate the unknown. And you never know. One of these days, you're going to walk into something and you're going to see something. Now, I'll be honest with you. I know you're quite spiritual, Kerry. I mean, on the weekend, I was at a location and I was down in the bottom part of it and I walked past and I'm telling you, I know what I saw. I saw a child run up the stairs. But I don't think that was an apparition and I don't think that was a spirit. I think what I actually done was triggered a recording because that's what it felt like to me. And it just blew me away. But that was a personal experience. There was nothing captured on CCTV or anything because we were just setting up. But it happened there and then, bang, right there. And I know what I saw. And so you've got to go on your own reconnaissance, really. You've got to believe what you say. But, as we know, the mind can play tricks on us. But that's an entirely different conversation for another time.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that bombshell, we've pretty much come to the end of the show already.
What, already?
Time flies.
I know, it does. Time absolutely flies when we get into a deep discussion. And it does create a lot of passion in the field. It does. I put a post up today on the Parasearch group page, asked for people's opinions, and loads of people would comment. There's loads of different perspectives on this, loads of different opinions on this one. We hope we've covered pretty much all different perspectives tonight, because it isn't about what we think or anything else. You pay your money, you take your choice. I've said that several times tonight. If I want to investigate, I know what I want, and that's up to every single individual to decide for themselves of what they want from a location, from an investigation and how they wish to progress in the field. And that, I think, is the important point. It's not a one perspective topic.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I think that, in the chat room, you said that Tricia was going to the location.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to follow up with Leah now on this.
Absolutely. I would
and
love...
Tricia. Yeah, and
I would
Tricia.
actually love
In
to have
fact,
a
to be quite honest, I would ask her to come on the show, because I think she'd be more than happy to come on the show and talk about it, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. So when Tricia, if you're still there, if you, once you've done the investigation, contact us through the Parasearch group page, and we'll see if we can get you on air and we can talk about the location and your experiences. That'd be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
And,
cool.
And just to remind you, Carrie, don't forget that you promised me something back last year, that you were going to come down on an investigation with me.
I did promise you. I did.
Into that, and you can drag them all with you as well at the same time.
Awesome. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I am. I would love to. I would love to, because just as a location, it's awesome.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
as a location in itself, that for me, the Jamaica Inn we're talking about is just perfect. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's really old. It fits my criteria for locations, is what I'm saying on that one.
A lot of history down there,
Exactly.
and perhaps when if you and Paul be kind enough, we'll do a show on it or something, and me and Karina come on and talk to you about it.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Excellent. That'd be good. Right, so Kerry, what's coming up for the next week? Or this week later?
Well, for the rest of the week, tomorrow evening, 9 p.m, sorry, I've got an aeroplane really low flying over my house, is Haunted Histories. Now, Penny has got Gemma in the studio with her, talking all about the ancient even Ram Inn on PSH Radio on Thursday evening. Carl and Sam are joined by Laurie Schaefer and Liz Connell to talk about Bodmin Jail and Jamaica Inn, because they did an investigation there recently, did a weekender. So you'd know all about that, CJ.
Who was it? Sorry, because I have so many people come down there.
Laurie and Liz.
Yeah, I think, yes, Laurie. Yes, lovely Laurie. Yes, I remember her. Yes, she's wicked. Absolutely wicked. She was. She had a really good night, I think, as well.
Well, we're going to hear all about that on Thursday evening. Then on Friday evening, we are talking on the Dark Mirror Show all about portals. That's going to be a wild one with the two lads, I'm sure. Always is a bit wild on Friday. So, yeah. So that's what we've got coming up. What are we doing next week, Paul?
Excellent. Next week we're talking to the Creator.
The Creator.
Yeah, we're interviewing... Go on.
Richard Clements. We've actually finally pinned him down to do an interview.
Yeah.
Richard
We're going to interview... with the Creator.
The Creator of Parasearch Radio. And it's about time that he started showing some of the knowledge that he has on the paranormal.
Yeah. So everyone get into the chat room and listen in on that one.
I look forward to that one.
Yeah. Mr. Richard Clements. He's a bit like a Charlie character. He sort of sits in the background and we're dragging him to the forefront.
Standing in front of the camera.
There is an old saying, isn't there? A good leader always leads from the shadows.
Wow, this is very, very true with that one.
We'll turn the spotlight around tonight.
We are.
Next week.
Yeah, next week we're turning the spotlight around. Thank you, everybody, for being in the chat room tonight. We have been reading your comments, and we hope, like I said earlier, we addressed everything that you wish to address. And we do have respect for everybody, is all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, and that's what it's all about. And yeah, I mean, if Lee does actually listen to this eventually at some stage, then maybe we can have him on and answer a few of these questions that we've been raising tonight. So I want to thank you, CJ, for joining us. Absolute pleasure as always. Not that he's listening.
Has he gone? Has he disappeared on us?
Is he reading the chat room, probably?
I'm going to go in and actually have a look at some of these comments, actually, because I haven't had a proper opportunity to see what people have been saying, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting anyway. So, yeah, thank you, CJ, for joining us.
No, you're more than welcome.
Thank you as always, Kerry. And
Always welcome.
Thanks everyone that's been in the chat room. It's been a pleasure. So it's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.